Welcome to the Samurai Brothers Wrestling podcast, episode 13. Matthew, we've gotten this far, and right before the Memorial Day weekend. But thank you to all for joining us, and so Matthew, also thank you for hosting the video again. Looks like things went well last week for us making our Facebook Live debut. We're probably going to be doing the episodes first. Everyone gets to see the premiere through Facebook Live, and then we upload the episodes to YouTube after that. So Matthew,
well, right now our friends get the exclusive stream, unless we want to start doing it to just general audiences.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, again, thank you to everyone for joining. And so today, Matthew, I thought we'd talk about, as you might be aware, the World Team Trials, the Challenge Tournament, has been going on this weekend, and so I've been following up on that. It does look like they did all the semifinals for the all the divisions this morning, and so then what is going to happen is, as we talked about within the last few episodes, there were 16 wrestlers who had qualified for their spot, their seed into the Final X based on their qualifications. Either they had medaled at the World Championships that took place after the Olympics, or they had won an Olympic medal. And so 14 of those 16 wrestlers accepted their slots into the Final X event.
One of the two that declined was Gable Stevenson, because he wanted to do WWE, and the other one was Adeline Gray, right? Because of pregnancy?
Yes.
Okay.
Gable Stevenson declined because he has joined the WWE, so he's focusing on that. And then Adeline Gray declined because of her pregnancy. So that meant that, so the way things are going at the Challenge Tournament is, if there is no Final X opponent that's already in the Final X, that means that whoever won the semifinals this morning ends up. So that means that two wrestlers will go to the Final X event, whether it's in Stillwater or if it's in New York, and so that means that they don't have to wrestle the finals for today. But if there is a Final X opponent that has already accepted their slot, that means that the winners of the semifinals from this morning, they do have to wrestle the finals, because only one can advance to the Final X. And Matthew, it looks like they do it similarly like they do Final X. Basically, you have to win best 2 out of 3. So in the case of the Challenge Tournament, in order to advance to the Final X, you have to win best 2 out of 3. I've been monitoring that. There were some matches that already finished the finals, because they've been doing that. It's the finals. The event itself is taking place in Iowa. It's taking place in Iowa. I believe. I don't know if it was at Hawkeye Center or if it was somewhere else specifically, but that's how things have been going. So,
if it's a Hawkeye Center, that means it would have been at University of Iowa.
Sorry. So yeah, actually, I don't have that correct. It was at I don't know how you would pronounce it. It's either Coralville or Corralville, Iowa.
Probably Corral.
Corralville.
Yeah, considering it's literally in the middle of the country.
Right. So with that being said, so now we'll go into the event itself. So let me see here. In it was a pretty sizable event going into this. It had a lot of people that were, obviously trying to get in. And so I thought let me just see then. I'll go through, see who we had. Now, it looks like I'm kind of going through and I'm looking at the brackets. Which would you like me to start off with, just to kind of give you an idea of who advanced to where on this? Freestyle, men's, or Greco, or women's? Do you think we should start?
Well, traditionally, when they go through the divisions, it's men's freestyle, men's freestyle Greco, and then women's freestyle. So let's do it in that order. So the results so far.
So the results so far. So it looks like 57. So the lightest weight, which was 57.3, it looks like that has concluded. Now they ended up having a total of 11 wrestlers compete in the event, and so it ended up happening.
Now, remind me, was the Pan American Championships a qualifying criteria for the challenge tournament?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because so far, my understanding is the World Championships, the Olympics, because it was the same year, the Bill Farrell Memorial, and the U.S. Open. That's my understanding of qualification.
And then they did have a final. They had a last chance event as well.
Oh, right. So, yeah, 5 different events that you could use.
I'm not sure that. If you remember, Matthew, there were quite a few people that had ended up qualifying for the event. There was something. Let me see if I can. Let me do a search of that last.
NCAA was another qualifying criteria.
Yes, NCAA was a qualifier.
Well, let's call it college qualifier because it varied from division to division. It was NCAA D1 in freestyle wrestling. You had down to NAIA in Greco, and then in women's, you've got 2 different tournaments. You've got the WCWA tournament and the what's it called tournament? The NAIA Invitational.
So let me see here. So here's what I have. I did find the article, so I pulled it up. I'm not sure what happens if I try to screen share, because I don't know if that would mess up the
well, let's try. Let's
Okay.
try, and if not, I could.
I'll try it and see what happens here.
It's working.
So let me see.
It's working on my end, so.
All right. Where did I go? Okay. So, as of May 4th, now, I don't know if they ever bothered to update, everyone. I don't know if they bothered to update the, what do you call that? The
Qualifiers?
last chance qualifiers. But anyway, so if we're looking at this, Gilman was, Gilman, he accepted the final X, obviously. So then you have
Path of least resistance. You can rest up while everyone else is wrestling for your
Right.
spot.
So just with this alone, you've got how many here? You've got 5 when you have Matthew Ramos, who was the U.S. Open champion, and then when you go down, you have 11 plus the 4 wrestlers who they deemed qualified based on the NCAA championship. So you had 15 wrestlers that were qualified for the challenge tournament.
And the way this is going to help us in terms of like that conundrum that we were trying to figure out of who was qualified how in the U.S. Open. So
Right.
obviously in this one it was just a straight up 1 through 7 because 1 through 7 were the ones who all
So
went.
here's what I'm finding that's interesting.
I was gonna ask too if they do a true second place, because they used to do a true second place match.
Here's what I'm finding interesting, though. because I thought that the winner of the U.S. Open got an automatic seed to the semifinals, but I'm looking at
Where did you read that?
I thought I had read it somewhere that was the case, and I had been talking about that for the past few episodes. Because I think that happened in the past.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that. I wonder if they
I'm
changed the
looking at-
criteria.
Because yeah, maybe they did. Because Ramos won the U.S. Open,
but he's the 1 seed.
Right, he is the 1 seed. So maybe that's what they did.
Yeah, maybe they changed it to where the winner's the 1 seed.
That is a possibility. So out of the 15 wrestlers who were qualified for 57 kilos, only 11 decided to participate. And it looks like none of the wrestlers who qualified via the NCAAs, they did not participate. So it was just
well, what's it called? What years are they in college?
So I do know that when I go back here, I know Soriano, he's done. He's done because this was his graduate year. I'm not certain about Pacquiao. I have to go back and double check. RBY, he was a senior, but he has eligibility due to COVID.
So maybe he's just choosing to
he publicly announced that he was coming back to Penn State to wrestle.
So maybe he's just choosing to concentrate on
possibly
wrestling.
Right, and then once he gets that done, then he'll probably work on doing.
Well, what's Soriano's plans? Because he didn't wrestle, right? You just said that none of the NCAA guys wrestled, so he didn't wrestle.
As far as I know, if I'm looking at it, because you got Soriano, you got
he's not there.
Glory,
yeah, he's not.
You got RBY, and then you got DeSanto.
Yeah, none of those guys are there.
Yeah, none of those guys are here. And
did we establish if DeSanto's looking to continue wrestling past college, or is he just gonna enter the workforce?
I have not heard anything about what DeSanto is planning on doing. Which, you know,
he could be doing any number of things. He could be choosing just to go into the workforce. He could be choosing to possibly go into MMA. He may have gotten injured. There's any number of things that could have happened.
Right.
Like Cole Conrad, you know, when he was Cole Conrad became the first Bellator heavyweight champion, and he chose to walk away from the sport because he got a job selling something in the farming industry. I can't remember what, but he does pretty well for himself, is my understanding. So it's possible to get a good job straight out of college.
So
depending on your degree, of course, obviously.
So, but I guess it didn't matter for Ramos because he ended up being upset by Camacho, who was the 4 seed.
And what had Camacho accomplished?
So if we go back to, let me see, Jacob Camacho took 3rd at the U.S. Open. That was his qualifier for the World Team Trial.
So they met again in the World Team. Wait, so that means who did better that would have been seated above the? It had to have been the. Wait, go back.
So
because that means
Camacho was 4.
There we go. The second place for the Olympic trials.
And then you've got Richards. So let me see here.
So obviously they seed
placed 4th at the Olympic team trials, and then Arujau placed 2nd at the Olympic team trial.
So he was given the 2 seed.
He was given the 2 seed. Richards was given the 3 seed. Ramos was the number 1 seed based on the U.S. Open.
Wait, but where's Moulton? Because Moulton would have been ranked above him.
The 5 seed. Moulton ended up being the 5 seed.
Do they have like a head-to-head? That's the only thing I could think of, is that maybe...
Possibly.
That's the only possible thing I could think of. Maybe they didn't face each other in the U.S. Open.
Well, maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
Because I don't remember the bracket.
Right, yeah. I mean, it'd be too long for us to try and go back to bracket.
Yeah, we're not trying to make this a marathon.
Right. But let me see here. So if we go into the finals, so
they do have a third place match.
Yes, they did. So here's what happened.
I suspect that at the final X, they might have a true third place.
Possibly.
We'd obviously have to see, but I do think they have a true third or true second, because the alternates. I looked this up at the World Teams. You're allowed to take 2 alternates, but it's dependent on who does better. So I'm willing to say that they take 2 alternates and they do the true second to see who the alternate is. The first alternate, and then the second alternate,
So in 57, Arujau ended up winning the best 2 out of 3. So that means that he is going to advance to face Gilman in the final, at Final X. But so I imagine what you're saying then is that Camacho could be advancing to. He could also be advancing to possibly have a best or a true second.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how the final X goes. 'Cause, it's like the reality is, over the amount of time that we have been involved in wrestling, there's a lot that has changed both internationally. I mean, that's obvious. We've seen who knows how many number of changes, both internationally and then also nationally. There's been a lot of changes. The 20-something years, that's a lot of change.
So, yeah, it looks like they did not do a best 2 out of 3 for
the third place.
Third place. They only did 1. So,
well, why make them wrestle more than? Well, yeah, why make them wrestle more than you had to when you had that already going on in the third place match? So just let's see, consolation semis. So how did they have a full? Did they just have a report, or did they have a full on bracket? They had a full on bracket.
They had a full on bracket here. They don't do it. They don't do it like they do overseas.
Yeah, that's the thing about the U.S. It's always double elimination. You always get this chance to earn your spot,
which is always nice.
That's what it's, and we're unusual, but that's also why, in some way, in a lot of ways, we're better because we get more wrestling and we get more experience.
Yeah, because from based on my experience alone, it's like if I got matched up, when I was wrestling in Japan, if I got matched up with a guy, with a good guy right off the bat in the first round, like you're one and done. I've never been a fan of
single elimination.
Single
or that weird round robin, because you had to deal with that too, right?
That one was even. I think that one was even worse.
Yeah, you had to deal with that, and now I only had to deal with that at the AAU tournaments, but
yeah. Yeah, remember, it's like, where did we? It's like they would have AAU tournaments when we had first gotten back here, and where did we go? We went
Santa Ana Valley,
Corona or something, or
I thought we went to Santa Ana. Maybe we did, but we also went to Santa Ana Valley for one.
Was it Santa Ana Valley? I know that.
There were 2 tournaments. One of them was Santa Ana Valley. Another was somewhere in Corona.
Yeah, we went far for that other one, and
Well, the thing is, I've looked at it. I don't know why there's not a whole lot of AAU tournaments in Orange County, but or Southern California in general. They're all in the desert.
Right.
I don't know why they're all in the high desert, but yeah, they're all in the desert.
So,
darned if I know why.
Before we get too far into trying to look at the brackets, I just realized we should go through the semifinals of who got to directly advance to Final X of the semifinals that were done this morning. So here's what I have.
Because obviously we're not going to see these guys wrestle until later.
Right. So you have there were 3 men's freestyles that were done. It was 65 kilos, Evan Henderson, and then Yanni Giacomalis. And Matthew, we obviously know Yanni Giacomalis because he won the NCAA championship. He's currently a 3-time NCAA champion, and he's still got at least 1 year of eligibility. He may have 2 based on the COVID eligibility if he had it, because he was wrestling before. He wrestled his freshman year before COVID, so that means that he may have 2 years. So we could be seeing our first NCAA D1 5-time champion.
Yeah, because Hasselrig was a 6-time, but it was 3D2, 3D1.
Right, 3 and 3. So Yanni could become the first 5-time NCAA D1 champion. So that remains to be seen. 70 kilos, we had Zane Rutherford and then Jordan Oliver. So that should be an interesting one. That should be an interesting matchup. I'd love to see the matchups, but we're both kind of poor guys right now, so can't really pay for the premiums. But hey, we're just trying to do what we do. And then heavyweight, these guys, Hayden Zilmer and then Nick Jadowski. I'm just going to pronounce it that way. I don't know that that's, his name, but these guys benefit.
I'd say that knowing Eastern European pronunciation, I'd say that's as close as you're going to get.
Great. Anyway, so Hayden and Nick benefited from Gable Stevenson withdrawing from the Final X.
Yep.
So they get to move on. Over in women's freestyle, there were 4 semis that were there were 4 weight classes. And for the women, 53 kilos, Felicity Taylor got a 51-second fall over Haley Franich. And then Dom Parrish. So Felicity Taylor versus Dom Parrish for 53 kilos. 59 kilos, Lexi Basham versus Abby Net or Nettie. 72 kilos, Skylar Grote versus Amit Elor. And then 76 kilos, Diamond Guilford versus Yelena McCoy.
Now for these semifinals, which were determining the true the Final X participants, were these just one match or were these 2 out of 3?
I believe the semifinals were one match. So, like, for example.
Okay, so the only 2 out of 3 was the finals of the challenge tournament.
It would be the finals where you have to determine one person to advance to Final X. So, like, for example, Matt, 61 kilos. Is it 61? Oh, I think 61 has a. So let's go to, for example, the 65 kilo bracket. That's one of the ones that had who determined. Both wrestlers are advancing, and actually Henderson was the 8th seed. If you're looking at this, yeah, Henderson is the 8th seed against Giacomalis, who was the 2 seed, and I think what did Giacomalis? Well, he was the 4th place finisher at the Olympic team trials versus Evan Henderson, who placed 3rd at the. Yanni took 4th at the Olympic team trials. Evan Henderson took third at the World Team Trials.
The 2021 World Team Trials.
Right. Now, I don't know how I don't remember. I have to go back and double check because obviously you and I are having a bit of a short memory. But, obviously there was things about, how they got seated and such. Anyway, but with that being said, so I believe they only do a semifinals. I don't think they do a best 2 out of 3. Looking at this as it is, because then if you get to the finals, they are not doing. This is how it shows up on Flow's website. They don't show a round robin for best 2 out of 3 because both wrestlers they aren't wrestling. So that's how that's going. So, with that being said,
now just to confirm, you said that as we are talking right now on Sunday, May 22nd, there's still wrestling going on.
I believe that there's still some wrestling going on.
Okay.
But I think we'll get to we'll get to it shortly. So, you had 3 freestyle, 4 freestyle. Now here's where you look at Greco-Roman.
And that's just because we don't have a whole lot of Final X qualifiers with Greco-Roman.
No, Greco had the least Final X. I think just looking at this alone,
2, 4, 6.
they did have their
2,
the
4,
90,
6, 8, 9.
Yeah,
So we only had one Final Xer.
Right, because you had your Final X that accepted for Greco was down here, all the way down. You see, look at this. Because we just don't have anybody that, qualifies. So.
Yeah, we've always had good individual Greco guys. We've never, with the exception of like 1 or 2 occasions where we did well at the World Championships, we have never had a good team.
Right. So Giangelo Hancock from Sunkist, who was a world bronze medalist, and he accepted. So that means that it was only Greco that has to do a best, 97 has to do a best 2 out of 3. That may be going on right now. And we can double check it, shortly. But yeah, you've got the other 9 weight classes that are, all these guys ended up qualifying. Max Nori versus Brady Kuntz. You got Dalton Roberts versus Ildar Hafizov at 60. 63 was Sam Jones over Jesse Field. I believe that's.
Now I forgot. Did we double check to see if for those semifinal Final X guys if there was still the third place match?
I think yes, they do third place.
Okay.
But
yeah. Like I said, I'm gonna be interested to see if there is some
well, like for example,
true second.
65. They did do a third place bout, but it was only 1 bout. McKenna ended up winning over Ian Parker at 65 freestyle.
That's
Oh.
wait. I'm sorry. I must be blanking. Did we go over that and talk about how that was the standard? The third place is just 1.
Yes.
Okay.
We did.
I don't know why I'm so blanked out today. I don't feel hazy or anything like that.
That's okay. I think it's been a long week for everyone. Just
not for me necessarily.
The weather's been something else, but
The weather has been something else, but it hasn't been a long week for me.
I'm noticing there's quite a few falls in the Greco matches, and I think obviously that goes without saying that it's probably a lot easier to get your throws in Greco versus freestyle.
Oh yeah, it's definitely easier. You don't have the leg defense. Someone picks you up. Someone picks you up. There's nothing you can do about it, except try not to break your neck on the fall.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You just have to make sure that you're not getting hurt on your way down. I'm just amazed at some of the throws that I see, uh, in Greco matches. It's just amazing. That's why I would love to get back into it, but you just have to have that upper body strength. So let me see here. Let me just finish up with going over the weight classes that are semi.
I'm trying to remember who I was watching. I was watching a Greco match where they did like some high lateral throw.
So 67 kilos, Alex Sancho versus Alston Nutter. 72 kilos, Patrick Smith versus Benji Pete. 77 kilos, Britton Holmes versus Kamal Bay. 82 kilos, Ben Provisor versus Spencer Woods. 87 kilos, Alan Vera versus Timothy Young. And 130 kilos, Colton Schultz versus Tanner Farmer. So Colton Schultz is in the Greco Final X. So it should be interesting to see that. Now, just to kind of go over, so who ended up winning the challenge tournament first at 61 kilos, because that's one of the ones that needs a. So it ended up being Seth Gross from Sunkist. So then if we go next to, it's going to be 74 kilos, and that's going to be the person that will face off against Dave. And it's going to be Null, Matthew. Jason Null. So isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
So then, who do you have next? Then 79. Who's going to face Burroughs? That's going to be Chance Marsteller.
Ah, they went all 3 rounds.
Oh yes, that's where. Man, that must have been a barn burner for that one.
That makes some exciting. That makes some exciting wrestling right there.
Yeah, I think some of these matches. Yeah, I mean, you can tell they're really into it. Nope. Nope kind of dominated his opponent. So
something I think we're gonna start doing. Some highlights from these matches are probably on YouTube, right?
I would hope they are.
I think I'll probably start looking at the highlights because it's like we're talking about stuff, or we're talking about it academically. We're not watching these matches, but it would make sense if we actually started watching some of them or parts of it.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. We can definitely throw some reactions. I can definitely think of some matches that we can do some reactions to.
Oh yeah, we could do that for like future episodes, like we did with the with the
with that match.
Yeah, that match.
So just to kind of go off on a bit of a tangent. So I'm actually okay. So when I talk to one official who I know from my association, I won't name names.
About that match?
Yeah, so this official was actually, he did officiate at the tournament. So he represented in my organization. And
the OC... What's
the Orange County Wrestling Officials Association?
Yeah.
So in his mind, they were like, he sided with, those officials. And so I'm like, I don't know, it's like, I just felt that they didn't follow protocol. And he says, well, what protocol did they need to follow? So, but I did speak to some other, because I did officiate at some local tournaments recently. And I think the opinion is varied. And as it turns out, though, and I think this is where things really got messed up, and where people really assumed stuff, and I think it was just a massive mess that happened. And so basically, you know, with some officials within the past few weeks outside of my association, and I heard that Buchanan was challenging the near fall. Was apparently the thing. They were not, but I'm figuring, well, why are you going to challenge the near fall when your opponent is, when your wrestler is already down? But somehow that ended up turning into the officials talking about, well, was that near fall? And then they decided no, but then somehow it got into their heads that, oh, well, then it probably wasn't even a reversal too. And I think at that point it's then when they realized that they had messed up, put it lightly. And you know, I'm very, very certain. One of the things I know that a lot of these other officials are talking about is that there definitely needs to be video replay at the state tournament. And I am...
Yeah, there's video replay at the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, they have review at the NCAA tournament. Why can't they not have review at the state tournaments, especially in a very crucial matches? Because that's not the only match I heard that
they do it at the Olympics. They've been doing it at the Olympics for years.
Oh yeah,
years before the NCAA started it.
So I know that the they do video review. They just had some Japanese wrestling events. I got to watch some live stream events, for high school and stuff. And there was a match that came down to literally the last second. There was a wrestler who was behind. He was behind, I think, 2-0. And he had been scored, he got scored once for passivity, and then he got pushed out, so it was a 1-1 score. And he took a shot with like 5 seconds to go, and he got the guy down, but he only got him to his hands. And in freestyle, you have to get your opponent down to his knees in order to score the takedown. And it was an Ichifuji match. Ichifuji was losing. And so, he couldn't get him down to his knees as time expired. And so, obviously, they challenged to see if maybe there was, contact with the mat. And so they were playing the video out, and, because they had it on speaker, so I could hear, even though they were viewing off screen, because they had the live stream going, but I could hear the audio going. And they obviously did not overturn the ruling. So, and in Olympic style wrestling, if you challenge and if you lose your challenge, you also lose a point. So that basically so you have to really, at that point, if you are losing the match, you might as well challenge it, because it's not gonna, if you lose, it doesn't really change the score. It could change the score in a way.
Yeah, it would be beneficial to just hold off and.
But if you're losing, you might as well go for it. So
yeah.
The final score of that match ended up being 3-0 because they lost the challenge. It was either they were going to win 2-2 on criteria, or they were going to lose, 2-0 or 3-0. But going back to, the whole thing about that, there definitely needs to be video review at the state level. I think there's probably, I'm very sure that a lot of people complain about that result.
It could be arguable that you might need to do just video review in general. Well, obviously it would be dependent on if they have the equipment. Not every team has.
You can't do it at a local level. You just it's not feasible to do at a local level.
Well, for like example, if they did it at Masters that year that I was screwed over.
I mean, yeah, it would. I think if you're going to have video review, it has to be a state-sanctioned event, which means that you. I think that means that it would be league, CIF, divisionals, and then Masters, and then state in terms of California. But I think regular tournaments, it's not feasible to do because I don't think the schools are going to have. They're not going to have the equipment, especially if you're running on multiple mats. It's just not a feasible thing to get that many cameras. But definitely for
you could maybe do it for dual meets. Maybe. That's a big maybe. Definitely for at minimum, there should be video review for the state tournaments, and I am hoping that will be pushed going forward. You know, I'm hoping that the NFHS will consider that going forward because from what I'm hearing, Buchanan benefited from a semifinals match where their guy almost got pinned, but the official didn't call it, and he ended up coming back and winning the match. So, you know, like, hard to say. But, you know, it's a lot of things. You know, I don't have a problem with, you know, if you're going to call it. But, you know, and I've made mistakes, you know, I made mistakes like that too. But, you know, you got to make sure that you're applying the rules in the best possible way. And, you know, maybe I'll, you know, depending on where I'm at, if I get to Masters or something, I'm very certain that, yeah, if I got to Masters, I would probably definitely would blow up at least 1 or 2 calls. I mean, there were some calls. If you're an official in any sport, I don't think you cannot blow at least 1 call.
Right. I you know.
It's like we've seen like I've seen it in football, I've seen it in wrestling, I've seen it in MMA, I've seen it in basically any sport that I've watched where there is a official.
Right. No official in any sport is going to have a 100% call rate.
Yeah, because you always need a human to call that, and there's always going to be human error. So.
I think it's whether or not you're willing to admit where you were wrong, and if you're going to learn from that and grow from that, or if you're going to be, you know, an ignorant a-hole, and it's my way or the highway. I see.
Which to me goes back to the idea of I think there needs to be some kind of accountability. You know, it's like it's one thing if you're a good official and you just screw up. That's you know, and you know it's like you have a like 95 or 90% success rate and you know you screw up. That's one thing. But it's another thing if you have someone arrogant or someone who's incompetent and is just kept around. I really think there needs to be more accountability across the board in all sports. Not right. It's you know it's because I've seen screw ups in MMA. I've seen screw ups in wrestling. It's like we've seen screw ups multiple times. It's like and like I said, it's one thing if it's you know the however many years ago when the NFL, the referees union was striking and they had to get into they had to get into college football officials. Yeah. That's one thing, But it's a complete another thing if you have someone constantly screwing up. There needs to be more accountability across the board. It's like there needs to be something where you know, I don't care if it's a board of other officials, and it's done behind closed doors, and the reprimand is private, or if there's transparency and there's public. I don't care. If you want to save face, then have them do closed door sessions. But there needs to be some kind of accountability.
So I think there was I don't know if you follow John Boy Media, but he does a lot of commentary on baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen some instances where he's shown that there have been some MLB umpires that really have some big egos.
And I feel like the MLB is one of those places where like the egos are allowed to.
They're huge. All you have to say is one word, and it can get you tossed from the field. But anyway, so I did watch one highlight where they actually did fine an umpire for going beyond what he should have. So
the league fined him.
The league fined him, yes. But you don't hear about this much. You don't hear about it unless you really dig into it.
Like I said, it's like if you want to do, like, I don't care if it's a board of people in the officials in the league. I don't care if it's a board of just other people in the league. It's like I don't care what you do. Transparency, closed doors, do something. But what goes on right now does not work in terms of disciplinary action to officials. It's like if they're incompetent and they're endangering people, they need to be thrown out. And if they've got egos, they need to be disciplined. It's like this isn't about protecting just. It's you know, this is also about protecting the athletes.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. So let me go back in. I'm gonna re-share. We'll get through this pretty quickly so that we can move on to our next topic. But let me go ahead and screen share really quick about the So anyway, Matthew, yeah, so just kind of going into who's going to be. So you've got at the, let's see here. So who's Chance Marstiller, again, had a 2-1 match, barn burner, at 79 kilos. So Chance Marstiller will advance to face Jordan Burroughs. So who do we got next? So then after that, you've got the next two weight classes. Actually, three. Okay, next 3 weight classes. Is that right? Maybe. Let's see here. Yeah, 80. So yeah, 86. Valencia, Matthew. Valencia.
Zahid.
So he will advance to face for 86 kilos. That would be David Taylor. So Zahid Valencia versus David Taylor. And then 92 kilos, that person will face Jaden Cox. And that is Mr. Jackson. Even on here? Do I have this right? N. Jackson. Okay.
Was he a last chance tournament guy?
I'm not certain. Maybe. supposed to have. Nathan Jackson. How come he's not on the? He must have been a.
He must have been in the Last Chance tournament.
As a number 2 seed?
Well, where else was he? I mean, we've looked at every other event that he was in.
Yeah.
He wasn't an NCAA qualifier. He wasn't in the NCAA tournament. He wasn't in the U.S. Open. He wasn't.
Yeah, that's really.
He wasn't in the Olympic trial. He wasn't in the.
That's really weird. Unless I completely missed something. Last chance qualifier. There we go. Yeah, it took place in New Jersey. He's not on here. I mean, did they get the right guy? This is really weird. Nathan Jackson from NYAC. What? This is really weird.
Do we want to try maybe looking up a general?
Nate Jackson. This is really weird.
Okay, so he's got a college background.
Yeah, that goes without saying. This is really weird.
WrestleStat. Do you want to look up WrestleStat? What would they have? Like, that's the only thing I could think of. Season
Unless they got an entry wrong. Princeton Wrestling Club. Yeah, I don't know. That's this is kind of weird. This is really weird. Where did this guy come from? If he's not on the list.
Do they have an article about the results?
They might. Actually, well, yeah, I think they do. Our top seed, the knockoff has. Well, he's on here. They said Nathan Jackson of NYAC. I don't. That's really weird. Unless, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Moving on. It doesn't make any sense to, I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to go over it.
Yeah, we're befuddled at this point, but there's someone missed something somewhere.
Yeah, someone missed something somewhere, and then this other wrestler, Colin Moore. Let's see the entry list. Colin Moore. He's not on. He's not in the last chance thing, so there's some weird stuff going on here? I don't get it. Number 2 seed, Colin Moore.
Wait. There's one thing I could think of. What?
Yes.
Who represent the Pan Am? The guys at the Pan Ams.
Oh.
Do we ever list? Yeah, that's the only thing I could possibly think of.
It might be right. Okay, hold on. Go back to this. Yeah, you might be right, Math. It might be the Pan Ams. We'll go back to wrestling, Pan American Games 2022. No.
Okay.
Snyder.
It was a thought.
Yeah. Really weird. Okay. All right. Well, let's see here. Let's finish this up then. Women's freestyle 50. Okay. So, who advances to face? Let's see. Women's. Sarah Hildebrand is in the final X for women's. So, who faces her? Alyssa Lamp of Sunkissed advances to the final X. Then you've got, who is next? 53, you have the 2 women. So, and then Jenna Burkett at 55 is the final X opponent. So then Jakara Winchester of the USOP Titan Mercury, she advances. Then the next one, Helen Maroulis did accept. So then at 57 kilos, which it looks like some of these weight classes weren't that big because there was only 7 here. I would imagine because
It's the women. There's not as much wrestling.
Alexandra Hedrick of Titan Mercury did advance. So then who do we have after that? So then 62 kilos, Kayla Miracle. So then we go to 62. You had your winner there was Jennifer Rogers of Titan Mercury. And it looks like it was only that one weight class, 74 kilos, that we had, from what I'm seeing so far, there were three, they had to go the full 3 matches.
Yeah, it seems like most of them, the challenger is pretty dominant.
Right, the challenger was pretty dominant there. So, then, then you gotta go to 65, and then 68, so 65. So at 65 kilos, you had the best 2 out of 3. Oh, here we go, our second 3-match event. And the winner ended up being Mallory Belty of Titan Mercury. So she will challenge Forrest Molinari. And then the challenger for Tamira Menza Stock at 68 kilos. By the way, I did see that here we have Kyra Cantillo from formerly of San Andreas College Wrestling. Although unfortunately she went 2 and out. But she's at Grand.
She made it.
Yeah, she made it.
I mean, what was the last San Andreas alumni that you could think of? Wait, was it
Well, Ruiz qualified for the 2012 Olympics, but he represented Mexico. So,
right?
And actually, I think Kyra Cantillo is the first wrestler under Coach Silva that I know of to qualify for the U.S. World Team Trials. But I may be wrong, but I'd have to do a lot of digging. but she's the first wrestler that I know of, formerly under Coach Vince Silva, to qualify for the World Series trials. But I will do some digging on that and get back to you. Anyway, the challenger to Tamira Mensah-Stock is going to be Sienna Ramirez of the Southern Oregon Regional Training Center. So, and she won on basically a 4-point move. So that criteria, I think in a way, Matthew, this is good how they did this, because I think it really makes things interesting. Don't you think?
The criteria, you mean?
Yeah, the criteria.
Yeah, it really does make things interesting, and we don't have to do overtimes.
Yeah, very true.
Don't have to make the wrestlers wrestle longer than they have to.
Well, I think the other thing is, they don't have to, like, remember that weird leg, the weird leg thing when it was best 2 out of 3. You remember that?
Weird leg thing.
So okay. So what ended up happening was when if they had to go to overtime, in that.
Oh right, yeah. They put them in on
a leg lock or something like that.
Yeah, it was the equivalent of the clinch.
Yeah, really weird. Okay, so Braxton Amos is going to challenge D'Angelo Hancock at 97 kilos.
The only Greco.
The only. So now we're all set. June 3rd is the first Final X event.
So it looks like the challenge tournament had wrapped up.
Yeah, it wrapped up. We took long enough that it did wrap up, which is good. So with that being and then what's going to happen with the people who directly advance based on their semifinal results. So, 3 should be interesting, like you said, about, will they have like a true second or like a true third place match? That's an interesting thing. What would happen with that? I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about that at all.
Yeah. So I actually have something to share as well. Is that what you were gonna discuss, or do you have something else?
So I've got the other thing was just kind of brushing over the signings real quick. But
okay, yeah, let's go over the signings.
So let me screen share on the signings, and this is from the Cal Grappler. So, just seeing what they have so far related to signings, and so what do they have with signings so far? And actually, I will. Let's see here. I'm sharing the wrong screen.
Yeah, that's Markiplier, right?
Yeah. So actually, I'd like to. Okay, so, and again, it's kind of undetermined as to,
I think I was in this thing when I went to MOBAP.
Oh, that would have been interesting, if that was the case.
Wait, what was I forgot. What was the old forum that Cal Grappler replaced?
The old forum was the California Wrestler.
Okay, yeah, I think I appeared in the California Wrestler.
Yeah, did you actually sign a letter of intent? Or did you just show up as committed or something like that?
I think I just showed up as I don't think I ever signed a letter of intent. I just showed up as committed.
So I think these, and again, this is Now, I don't know how old some of these signings are. And so I don't know when this was last updated, but I think, I went to the Cal Grappler website, and this was the first thing that showed up. So I think this has been updated, recently. So, but anyway, just kind of looking, and they are showing who's signed, who has given verbal commitments, and so I think just looking at who's staying in California. So I mean, you got one guy from going to ASU from Palm Desert, which Palm Desert was the one school who really performed at the state tournament. You have a couple of people going to Army West Point.
That's impressive.
That is actually, yes.
Because I only know of one guy in Southern California who went to actually there was one other guy aside from Travis Featherstone. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know how long he was in the Army, or maybe if he still is.
So then, when we're getting into California schools, so you got 6 people that are committed, 6 wrestlers committed to Cal Baptist.
That one Japanese guy is.
Yeah, actually, I know him because he had a brother who also wrestled. And
I'm guessing from the fact that he has a Japanese first name that he's probably from Japan, or at least has pure Japanese parents.
He's got Japanese parents. Because I know the other guy. I think the other guy wrestled at his brother. I know wrestled. I think for Torrance or something like that. And I think he was either at Torrance or somewhere else because he actually transferred to Calvary Chapel.
His brother?
No, Yoshia.
Okay.
Yoshia transferred from whichever high school he was originally at. He transferred to Calvary Chapel.
And obviously did well enough to where he's going to Cal Baptist.
Yeah. So they have 5 signed commitments. So that's Cal Baptist. And then if you go down, obviously Cal Poly. Now in their case, though, they have how many that have? They've got 9 wrestlers that have committed, but only 1 has signed on. And of course, he's from Morro Bay, so he's a local boy because Morro Bay is right up there.
Right there.
Mm-hmm. So
the Clovises are nearby.
Right.
That's a few hours drive away.
Now this is interesting. I didn't know that there was a second Corona Del Mar High School. I know there's one, out in Newport, but I didn't know there was a second one in San Diego.
I didn't know either. Interesting.
Yeah. I know this guy, Luke Meyer from Capo Valley. I saw him, and actually, I think he was playing football also, but so he got, I think, he got to the state tournament, I think. I don't think he placed though, but when he must have done something over the break though, because in the couple of freestyle tournaments that I officiated at, and I got to officiate a couple of his matches, and he got into like shape and everything because he was moving not like he had been doing during the season. I don't know what happened with him.
So he went from a traditional heavyweight who's like 2 whales bumping into each other to like an actual athletic heavyweight, not necessarily like a Steve Mocco.
Maybe he might be something to look out for, as far as Cal Poly thing.
I say Steve Mocco because Mocco was big, but he was still on the athletic side.
Yeah.
He's obviously, unless he's like a Hulk like Brock Lesnar, then.
So it should be interesting. Luke Meyer from Capo Valley.
I don't know if I mentioned this, but Brock Lesnar, I think, admit to taking steroids. But here's the thing, you've seen footage of him in college, right?
I've seen the one where he won the final.
Yeah, he was. Well, you've seen him. He was like an ox in college. So he was already a big guy to begin with. The only thing that maybe the steroids did was maybe just help slim him down maybe a little bit. But
so nine going to Cal Poly, but one is signed. Now go down to
Case Western Reserve. I've never heard of that college.
I've never heard of.
I've heard of Shannon State. Clackamas?
That's in Oregon.
What? What division is that?
Not sure.
Like I've heard of all these other colleges. Shandron State. I know of. What's it called? Reserve. I have no idea. Clackamas. Okay, that's.
Clackamas. Okay, so Clackamas.
Oh, community college. It's. I see it down there. It's a community college.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes all the sense in the world now. Okay. So
But the Case Western Reserve.
Yeah, I have no idea where that's at. Shadron State. That's probably a D3 school. So let's look at Cal Bakersfield. Looks like they've got quite a few people signed. 6 out of 7 commitments have signed on. And it does look like, now this is interesting. So they have one guy from.
I'm assuming that all these I'm assuming by the fact that they're signed so many guys that, like me, a lot of these guys were not placers.
Probably not, because, like, for example, when I did, and maybe I just, like, when I officiated CIF, I don't remember seeing this guy. I don't think he repped Calvary Chapel, but maybe I didn't see him. There's probably quite a few guys like that, that are out there.
I mean, maybe a bunch of these guys made it to. I mean, maybe a bunch of these guys made it to state. I was unusual in that I was able to not even make it to state and still get a scholarship. Actually, no, wait a minute. I wasn't the only guy. There was that one kid from Sunny Hills. I forget his name. He was my grade, and he also went to William Penn. Because we talked about Emmanuel Hernandez, my teammate. He went to William Penn, and the guy from Sunny Hills, he also made it to William Penn. I don't even know if he made it to Masters, to be perfectly honest. The guy from that's. I was like, wait a minute. Why is there someone from Fresno State and then it says football? It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that one.
What?
Whatever. Pueblo. So Colorado State Pueblo. I don't think that's the Colorado State. So that probably means that this is probably a D2 or a D3.
I think it's a D. I'd like to say a D2, but I might be wrong.
Cumberland's, that name came up recently.
NAIA. I can tell right now, NAIA.
Did MOBAP ever have to go against Dickinson State? Dual-wise?
Well, remember, they might have actually done one away duel, and of course at the time, because I wasn't in the varsity lineup, I didn't have to go.
Okay.
Because remember, I was only on varsity for 2 years, and it was, well, let's see, my sophomore year, it was for the fall semester. After that, a guy transferred in and took my spot, which, I'll be perfectly honest, I wasn't completely disappointed about, considering that season there were multiple times where the guys had to weigh in for there were 2 or 3 weeks where we had 2 duels and a tournament, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I remember a cast where I talked about how at the time there was, how at one point there was a, for like event situations like that, there was a weigh-in for 1 and then just go. But that was probably before they were a little bit more stricter on weight cutting. But there was also a time where you would just have to weigh in. You would have to weigh in on weight for one. Then if you had two other weigh-ins, the coach brings the paperwork, and they would get a 1 pound weight allowance for each consecutive weigh-in. So, for example, if it was 165, you weigh in the Thursday for the duel, then you do Friday 1 pound 166, and then for the tournament 167. But that was not around at that. By the time I was there, that wasn't happening. So the guys who had to wrestle, those three, all three had to weigh in all 3 times. It was funny. I was teasing one of my teammates. I was like, I am so happy I don't have to make weight for these 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
And my teammate was like, I hate you. It was one of the teammates that I got along with really well, so that's why I was comfortable actually saying that. He was actually one of the teammates that Clayton Olson. I stayed with him my sophomore year for Thanksgiving.
That's good.
And he was one of the few guys that I stayed from my freshman year to my senior year with. Because by the time we all graduated, there was only 3 or 4 of us left.
Yeah.
Because everyone else had dropped out. We had some people that transferred in, but of that freshman class of 15, 20 guys, yeah, there was just the 4 of us left. 3 or 4 of us left by that time.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, it was the ones who were actually Christians, because, I'm sure, from my understanding, other colleges do this as well, but, MOBAP, a lot of the guys were Christian in name only, and one of the guys was a Muslim. So, it's Jackson, and like I said, he's not the only guy. I've seen this at a lot of Christian colleges across the board. They don't recruit based off your faith. But the way that Jackson saw it, he saw it as a ministry opportunity. I know that we're getting a little bit more into, our Christianity, but this is as far as I'll go, is that he saw it as an outreach opportunity.
Okay.
Menlo, Lehigh,
Menlo, yeah.
Iowa Central. That's a community college. I know that.
Yeah.
Because again, he's one of those guys I can't remember. But there was an Elmo guy who was my year who went to Iowa Central.
Yeah. Sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes Elmo will get a couple of these schools will get really, really good guys, but it's just one guy. Like, remember, I think Esperanza had a state champion this year.
This year?
No. They had a state champion a couple years. It was the kid from El Dorado this year. He won. He's like a sophomore or something.
Wow, I don't remember the last. Has Steve Lawson ever had a state champion?
He's had a few.
He's a state champion.
I think, yeah.
Like, I know that he's taking multiple guys to state and placed them, but I didn't know he had state champions.
Yeah. Let me see here. Do we have anyone else that is going to California?
Oregon State, Northwest.
Going to Michigan State. You got a Nebraska. You got going to Nebraska, Northwestern IA.
Wait, is that what? Wait, is Nebraska West? Is that what they call Nebraska Kearney? Because I remember Nebraska Kearney had that antelope.
Let's see. No, it looks like it's it's a private school.
Okay, never mind.
All right, so just to kind of finish up, can you have anyone? Okay, we got 2 guys going to San Francisco State. We have
Stanford.
Stanford.
Wheaton
and then
College.
we have 1 commitment to Vanguard from Cyprus. That's interesting.
I wonder why more local guys aren't going to Vanguard.
Well, I'm very sure that has to do with what is if right.
Well, yeah, if I'd had the opportunity to wrestle local, I would have wrestled local. If I could have gone straight out of straight out
Oh,
of
yeah.
of my goal was always, if possible, go straight out of straight into a 4-year. SAC, I'm sure I would have benefited under Silva, but the fact of the matter was, SAC was always a last resort.
Oh, at that time, it would have been very competitive. You would, I'll tell you right now, you would not have gotten on
The lineup.
the line at that time if you had gone to SAC. Yeah, you would not have gotten on.
That was another reason why I was trying to get into a 4-year, because the fact of the matter was I just wouldn't have been able to do well. I could have probably gone somewhere else.
I remember Dad saying he would have, if you were to have gone to a community college, he would have had you go to SAC because
They were not good at the time.
Yeah, they were not as good at the time as they are now. So anyway, yeah, that's basically what it looks like right now. Looks like, I mean, when it's coming to the schools in California, it looks like Cal Bakersfield and Cal Poly are the obvious front runners for getting the most people signed on. But but I'm, it's not like what I think that list though. What it doesn't, what it fails to show is people who went on to community colleges, and if they were successful at the community college level, and then going on to 4 years, where were they going? So, the list, I'm not going to say it's misleading.
It's incomplete.
Yeah, and, there just seems to be a thing about not showing a lot of love for the community colleges out here.
Another thing, another option I maybe could have considered would maybe have been like Victor Valley. Because I forgot, they don't have a wrestling program anymore, right?
Oh, Victor Valley does have a wrestling program.
I thought they cut it at one point.
They were in danger of cutting it.
Oh, okay.
The program that did get cut, though, in the southern region, but did come back, was Moorpark.
Well, at least one came back.
Story behind that, because the coach who runs Moorpark right now is Lindley Kistler, who was a part of, I guess they're called the Kistler brothers.
Uh-huh.
And so they were all pretty successful. And I know that Lindley was from his profile, he was a All-American, just like Coach Silva was. But I know that he likes Coach Silva because there's not a lot of coaches in the community college system, as far as I know, that are D1 wrestlers. But I mean, if I were to name some names, it'd be Vince Silva, Lindley Kistler, Paul Keesaw, obviously, and some others. I'd have to go through to find out how all the other coaches did, but that's just something that's kind of interesting. But see, the reason why Lindley Kistler likes to talk with Silva a lot is because they wrestled around the same time, and Kistler was at Iowa. At that time, that was when there was a really fierce rivalry between Oklahoma State and Iowa. trying to go for the championships there. Of course, now it's the really big rivalry right now is Iowa and
Penn State.
Yeah. So anyway, that's how that goes.
Okay. Well, so
yeah, in closing, Matthew, I know that you want to discuss something.
Yeah, so I went and did a bunch of research this last week about some of the stuff we talked about in the last podcast. So I looked up some stuff from both the 2021 World Championships, the Pan American Championships, the Olympics, and also some stuff even about the regional training centers. So with the Olympics, I'll just start as far out as possible. For the Olympics, for 2020, there was 289 spots available to wrestle in. I think 4 of those were actually reserved for the host nation.
Yes, I think the host nation will get.
I looked that up, and the host nation does get some. I think it happened in Rio as well. I don't know if it's varied over the years, but definitely for both Rio and Tokyo, they had 4 spots.
Automatically.
Yeah. So the 289 spots basically came out to basically a 16-man bracket for all the division except for one, which had a 17-man bracket, and I probably should have written that down, which weight class that was. But in order to reduce things, the African and Oceanic regionals was combined into one tournament.
That would make sense.
Yeah, so normally on non-Olympic years, it's the Pan Ams, European, Asian, African, and
Oceania.
Yeah, Oceania. But for this tournament, for the Olympics, they put it down to 4 regions.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, that was about the Olympics. So the World Championships for last year. So obviously, one question you asked was whether there were any African nations. I looked up Nigeria, Kenya, and Egypt all sent wrestlers. And I think they sent them in all 3 divisions.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I
think Egypt may not. Did Egypt send any women?
They did. Curious. Believe it or not, they did.
So I'm actually now.
Well, here's an interesting thing. I remember a while back. I don't remember which Olympics this was, but Egypt actually sent a women's volleyball team. And some of the women were wearing hijabs, but they were out there.
There's to kind of a little bit off. I've seen there are some Muslim women that obviously there's Muslim men and women who wrestle in the United States, and then I've seen some who in the case of the women who do adhere to the hijab, they do have specialized wrestling attire for that. Also, when it comes to covering the hair.
Why do I get a feeling that it's like some kind of like lycra spandex type thing that like looks like a hijab, but it's just like something with a
right
hole.
It kind of is when I was looking, because I saw that in a highlight match, so that kind of piqued my interest, because I know Egypt does seem a bit more lax on that compared to, I think which country I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
Iran. Because
Iran doesn't even allow women to compete in any sport.
yeah, Iran, for the Olympics, they qualify the men in all the weight classes, but they never send women. And that's about as much as I'll get in that political topic. But so Egypt, Nigeria, and Kenya. So that
here's my theory on that. A lot of these, let's face it, Africa is made up of mostly poor nations. So when it comes to sports, they're going to invest their money in the sports that they do best at and that give them the most exposure. So track, basketball, if they get into it, swimming, just stuff like that. That's what they're going to concentrate on. Wrestling, as far as they're concerned, is a back burner thing. Now, I have no idea if athletes are able to go on their own, but if I'm sure that if you have a good enough athlete, that can.
Yeah, I think some countries do provide for that, but I'm not sure as to how much. But yeah.
I think if you got an athlete who can afford to just go by themselves,
right,
and they'll go. But
right,
obviously for Africa, it's a low priority. Most people are starving. They're trying to, they're concentrating on other stuff. Wrestling is not high on their priority list.
What else did you find out, Matthew?
Okay, so there were 67 teams across the three divisions that went. There were 36 women, 49 men Greco, and 53 men's freestyle.
Okay.
So I actually highlighted the teams that took full teams in at least one category. So India, Japan, Russia, Turkey, Ukraine, and the U.S. all took full teams in each category. Mongolia, this is very interesting, took full teams in men and women's freestyle. No Greco wrestlers. But I was thinking about it, wouldn't Mongolian wrestling be more similar to freestyle in that regard?
Probably.
So maybe that's because of the crossover, they just concentrate on that, and maybe they just don't even bother with Greco.
They don't get much in the Greco.
So other teams that sent some full divisions, Georgia and Iran both sent full men's teams. No women for either of those.
Kind of surprising me about Georgia.
I'm thinking about it.
Unless they didn't qualify.
Well, maybe that, but I was also thinking about it. Georgia is one of those central republics. I haven't looked it up, but maybe they just have that type of mentality of, well, women just don't do sports. Maybe. I might be wrong. Or maybe they just didn't qualify anyone. So into some other ones, just to about the teams. Kazakhstan sent a full Greco team. 9 men in freestyle, 8 women and 8 women. South Korea sent full men's teams and 7 women. And then did I mention Azerbaijan?
No, you did not mention Azerbaijan.
Sent a full Greco team, 9 men and 3 women. Then the Pan American Championships, I looked it up. So there's 40 total, I'll just say federations, because we have a lot of territories like Puerto Rico, Bermuda, the U.S. Virgin Islands that are all territories of other nations but are autonomous. So 40 nations were eligible to send teams to the Pan American Games. And as I don't know if you looked closely at last week, but only 21 sent teams. Jamaica was one of the teams that didn't even send anybody.
Well, as we know from the movie Cool Runnings, maybe they don't have they might not have a wrestling team.
Well, yeah, but I was also thinking that, again, a lot of the nations in the Americas, again, well, obviously some of them are small, like especially if you go around the Caribbean, but some of them, same thing, same situation with Africa. A lot of them are poor. A lot of them are just concentrating on surviving day to day, let alone, and then for those who have sports, they're probably concentrating on other stuff.
So, just a little bit of a side topic. So there was when I was in Japan, wrestling in Japan, and there was a couple times I went to the Nihon University dormitory for the wrestling team, and that's where the wrestlers stayed, and that's where they also did their practices. So I got to meet a couple of guys, while I was there.
That was like when you would do the whatever, trips, right?
Right, yeah, I do some of those trips. And one of the interesting ones was, I met a couple guys there, I follow some of them on, Facebook, IG, just in social media in general. And there's one guy I know that he moved to, I don't remember which country it is, but it's a Pacific island. And I'm not sure what he does as his main job, but he does post about he is the head coach for the national team there. Now, I don't think they qualify anyone normally, but he does show the team after they're done practicing and stuff. So, there's I gotta admire some of these guys that will go out from the developed nations and will go out to the underdeveloped or poorer nations to go out and put a team together.
Oh, so something else I forgot to mention, going back to the World Championships last year. The largest bracket was Greco, 77 kilos, 31 wrestlers. One wrestler got a bye into the first round, and that was the one seed.
That was from last year, right?
That was from last year, which kind of puts a monkey wrench into the works of your theory that top six of each region.
Yeah.
Because top six of each region would lead to a... wait a minute.
Were you able to break down by region or no?
Maybe I could do that as another project. Yeah, I'll make that as another project.
I want to.
But there were two divisions that were the smallest. 72 kilos and 55 kilos women. 14 weight class. 14 wrestlers. So
really interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if they delegate just spots or how? I mean, I'm almost wondering if that's something we have to dig into.
Yeah,
How do they delegate spots? I mean, I'm wondering if it almost works like, remember how the NCAA will delegate spots to each of the conferences based on their performances?
Yeah.
But what doesn't make sense is the NCAA gives 33 spots in total across the divisions. So the fact that you're going to have something like 31 wrestlers in one weight class, and then you have 14 wrestlers in a couple of other weight classes, makes no sense as to why you have this discrepancy.
Yeah, that is true. Oh yeah. So one last thing, I looked up something about the requirements for the regional training centers that the
That thing that we talked about.
yeah. I looked up the requirements specifically for the regional training centers, not related to the NCAA, just the USA Wrestling requirements. You can't recruit. So one of the things that the NCAA wants to crack down on doesn't even happen anyways.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. It specifically said it specifically said they cannot email. The coaches cannot email prospective wrestlers. They cannot text or phone call prospective wrestlers. So they cannot do any kind of phone communication. They cannot do any electronic communication. So
if they're not allowed to do it, then why are they making up these? Yeah, sounds like a witch hunt to me. NCAA, I think the NCAA doesn't. The guys running the NCAA.
Let's be honest. It's ironic how they're like, okay, well, we're willing to give women's wrestling a shot, and here they are cracking down on the sport still.
Yeah, NCAA just. I like to hate on the sport. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunately. Let's face it, Title IX did serve a purpose, and, they're like, there's a big old 50th anniversary campaign right now, but let's face it, there was I am 90% sure that it was unintended, but, look, like, our sport, the Division I wrestling is literally made up of half the programs that it did before Title IX was put into play. Half the programs are gone. Like, we've seen programs when we've been involved in the sport go bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye. And like we were just talking about community college programs.
I'm wondering if Title IX was responsible because you know how many community colleges used to sponsor wrestling back in the day?
Weren't there something like 10 just in Orange County alone?
Yeah, I think the number of community colleges that sponsored wrestling.
I looked it up. OCC
was almost equivalent to the number of D1 programs that there are right now.
Yeah, like I remember looking up something that OCC had a program, Fullerton College had a program, Cypress College had a program, Golden West had a program, Going Outside, Glendale College had a program. All these colleges had programs, and they're gone.
Sequoias near you.
Really?
They had a program. San Bernardino had a program. In fact, San Bernardino.
Community college.
Yeah, San Bernardino Community College. They actually. Let me make sure because I got a program from the state tournament from last year, and
it lists the state champions.
Lists the state champions, and I think San Bernardino Valley. San Bernardino Valley. They won 6 titles.
6
titles, and so the program did. See, and Sequoia's won 2 titles. So yeah, I'm willing to bet that yes, Title IX definitely killed, off 3/4 of the community colleges in California.
There used to be a time where California being a separate entity from the NJCAA made sense. Made complete sense. And for some sports, it probably still does. But And honestly, even wrestling is still pretty large in California in terms of community colleges. I think it's like still like a third to a quarter of as many of the NJCAA number, but it's not what it used to be.
Yeah, like schools that also had like individual state champions. San Bernardino Valley had 20. Cypress had 18. Golden West had 12. I don't know if you know where West Valley is. I think it's up in the central region somewhere. They're no longer around. They were around when I was wrestling there. Golden West had 12. Sequoias had 10. Well, there used to be a Foothill College. I don't know where that was at. Fullerton, they had some state champions. Orange Coast had some state champions. Los Angeles City College, San Diego City, Ventura College, Los Angeles Pierce. I mean, this is interesting. West Hills only had one individual champion before. That can't be right. That can't be right. I have to look up some stuff here. But yeah, you know, I mean, I'm gonna definitely not shy away from railing on how people. I think it comes down to a gross misuse of Title IX by college administrators.
Yeah, because they look at wrestling as an expendable sport.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't. You know, and honestly, yeah, it does not cost a lot to run the sport.
Yeah, I mean, the startup might be...
The startup might be costly, and then they're going to cite, oh, well, it doesn't make a lot of money because people don't come and watch it, and stuff like that.
But it's just like you realize how much... It's like these people need to realize, like, how little it takes compared to other sports. Like the money-making sports. It's like all the people that you have to, like you've got to ship 80 football players. I don't know if they.
You got 80 football players. The equipment that it costs. And
the supporting personnel.
Right, or the amount of and football players are not going to go in a van to an event. They're going to take a bus.
Yeah, wrestlers if you want. Yeah, wrestlers if you want to, you could take 2 vans. We did it at Mobab.
Yeah.
Or a bus. We would take one bus, whole team, one bus.
And it doesn't have to be one of those mega buses.
Yeah, it wasn't a mega bus. It was like a normal sized school bus.
But in football, you got to have your head coach. You've got to have your offensive and defensive coordinators. You got to have your quarterback coach. You got to have your assistant, whatever coordinator.
The trainers connected to it.
Trainers. You got to have your water people. Adam Sandler. All those different things. And it's like Orange Coast College. They can have a football team, and the team does crud.
Do they win?
I think they only ended up winning like one game this past season when I was looking.
It's like you could for one football team you could have like 2 or 3 other sports for one team.
Actually, which surprises me how Cal State Fullerton, they don't have football.
They had at one point, but the football team was cut long before the wrestling team.
I know. Yeah. Makes me wonder what they're doing with that stadium.
Soccer. They've got soccer. They have soccer games.
What's really infuriating is how I've heard. Now, I have not been back to Cal State Fullerton since I graduated, but I remember I did take like some off-season, they would have like a beginner off-season class for people who just wanted to, do wrestling and stuff like that. And I heard though that room, I think they took out all the mats and stuff like that. But then later I heard that the room where the team practiced in, it got converted into like a jiu-jitsu room or something like that.
So it's still got mats in it.
Yeah, although I don't think it's wrestling mat. Whatever mats they're using.
Jiu-jitsu mats are the exact same thing. They
Yeah.
probably get them from the same manufacturer.
It's inferior because there's a guy I know from SAC who actually taught classes. He taught jiu-jitsu classes at Cal State Fullerton for a couple of years. And yeah, it's inferior. It's like, so they're gonna allow like some MMA courses and stuff like that, but it's like they don't have the decency to. And I think people at this point, they probably don't want to have anything to. I'm almost certain there's probably people in the SoCal community probably doesn't want to have anything to do with Fullerton and vice versa, because I think probably the administrations make you have to jump through so many hoops to start up a program in the first place, which is why I'm actually surprised that West Hill started up when it did. And then that War Park was able to come back when it did, because I'm very sure they needed a lot of endowments to get the financial backing to start up the programs, and then just imagine that. I think probably the most costly thing about starting up a program is the mats themselves.
So something I'm going to bring up. I'll just say it's a confidential source, which I don't like doing as a journalist because. Then you can make anything up with the confidential source. But I heard that West Hills is looking to pop. I'm trying to understand if they're looking to just like a training center like a club or make it a regional training center. Which goes into the complication of, I looked it up. One of the requirements for the regional training center, you have to have 4 wrestlers who either are at the world stage or are nationally competing, trying to get into or have gotten into the world team trials. That's pretty lofty. But just something to throw out there. Anyways, but yeah, the most the starting off the most expensive thing is the mats.
Oh yeah.
But once you've got those mats last for.
They do. They last a long time.
Yeah, they last a while. I mean, especially with the technology nowadays. Well, it's some schools are wrestling on 20, 30, 40, maybe 50-year-old mats.
SAC won they got their current mats after they won the 2009 championship. So, starting 2010 is when I think they got those newer mats. I think it was either 2010 or 2011. So those things are at least 10 years old. And they're working this point. So,
well, another thing, I'm wondering if, like we said, because of the low upstart and maintenance, I'm wondering if, with women's wrestling in the emerging sports program and likely on track to becoming an actual program, I'm wondering if maybe maybe colleges will just start to piggyback onto that more and be like, oh, we need a women's sport. Let's start wrestling.
Yeah.
It's like it's the easiest. Yeah, it's the easiest thing. It's like the wrestlers can buy their shoes, the wrestlers can buy their headgear. I have no idea if they're going to require headgear because the WCWA doesn't. But it's like it's like you just have to buy some singlets and maybe buy replacement singlets every 4 or 5 years or so.
Well, it almost seems that the NCAA will adopt the policy, right? And NAIA and 3C2A and NJCAA, they all follow those. You know, they, as far as collegiate wrestling is concerned, whatever the NCAA makes for the rules, that's what the other three organizations follow when it comes to collegiate wrestling. WCWA has to kind of act on its own because it's using UWW. But one thing I've noticed is that NFHS, you know, which is the National Federation for High Schools, give it a few years and they will eventually adopt, you know, the NCAA way of doing things. I mean, you just look at how, for example, you know, like just with like recently, they're, you know, starting this upcoming season, they're going to be a little bit lax on the facial hair for, you know, the wrestlers. Obviously, it's got to be like, you know, it can't be, it's got to be reasonably trimmed. So it's not like you can kind of, you know, like the goat I have right now, you know, it's not supposed to be more than, you know, like 1 inch in growth. Now, how many kids are going to have, you know, a full-on beard going in the next season?
Not that many.
Know. But, you know, and a lot of kids, you know, when they're like 14, 15, 16, they're going to have like the fuzz and stuff like that. But like one thing, you know, like for example, NFHS kind of redid the fall rule when it comes to the out of bounds line, because I'm sure like you probably know when you were wrestling, you know, they were
had to be in
really
bounds.
strict. What?
The shoulder blades had to be in bounds.
Yeah. Well, now you can, if the defensive wrestler, even if both shoulders are out of bounds, as long as at least
they're on the mat and one limb is in bounds.
Well, in college, it can just be one leg or one arm or something. But in high school right now, the offensive wrestler has to have both knees in bounds. So that's where
that's a step.
Right now. So yeah, so I've had quite a few close calls in terms of, you know, I've had a few times where especially when they're that far out, you have to make sure if you're going to call the fall, you got to make sure you got to look at the knees first before you're going to call the fall. I've had to do that a few times. But yeah, if it's something simple like the defensive wrestler has one shoulder in, one shoulder out, that's like a really easy. Now, are they going to eventually go to, it just has to be a body part? Because right now for the, you know, the takedown rules on being in or out, right now it just has to be 2 points of contact. And it used to be that it had to be the 2 points of contact of the offensive wrestler. But now that's not the case anymore. It can be 2 points of contact of either wrestler. So NFHS is kind of going along. I don't know if they're going to eventually just be like, it can just be anything, because the thing you have to be careful about is when you have gyms that are not, they don't have a lot of space between the mat and the wall, because, you know.
Oh yeah, like El Dorado.
Sometimes these schools will pack the mats in really tight, you know, so that there's not a lot of space between the edge of the mat and.
Yeah, like El Dorado, what they have like what, two have enough room
they have
for.
2 gyms now. They really built up that one gym.
But they have enough room for like 2 mats across.
Yeah, I have not been there since I've seen the outside of the building, because sometimes I'll drive by El Dorado when I'm going home. But I have not seen the inside of the building since it's been finished. I think maybe one time I went, but it's been a while since I've been in there. But do you remember Sonora High School?
Yeah.
And And I think we might have gone there a couple times for some
They could
freestyle.
maybe go 2 or 3 mats across and then 2 mats wide.
They built a new complex recently, and the gym is big enough that they can have masters inside that gym.
Have they had masters inside that gym?
Yes, I think the last 2 or 3 masters they posted, and that was because the Southern Section lost the contract with the Ontario Ontario Center, and that's because the Ontario Center reneged on the agreement because they decided to host either like some sporting event or some music band on the dates of when Masters was supposed to be held. So I think
They want more money, pure and simple.
Yeah, well, I think the Southern Section. I think there ended up being a legal battle because of that. Because
I hope the Southern Section won.
I'm hoping too. I mean, because the Ontario that event center violated the terms of the contract. So,
also, you remember how a while back I said that the WWE at one point had exclusive rights for pro wrestling events in the main Madison Square Garden arena? That's no longer the case.
interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Matthew, I think we've had quite an episode today. We did a lot of talking, but I think you're right. We should be throwing in some video reactions.
Like looking at the results. As we do that, because we did that one. It's like we could do that. Obviously, last week was us testing out the Facebook Live format, not exactly going great, and here we are doing it, and I think it's going well.
Yeah, we're doing okay. Anyway, so yeah, hopefully some things will improve. So anyway, Matthew, again, where can our viewers find us?
Okay, so we are on YouTube and Rumble for our our visual, and then of course, if you follow me specifically, my Facebook, then you can you could stay tuned for the live format.
The premiere.
Yeah, the premiere, which includes some stuff that I do cut out. It's just some minor stuff here and there. And then for the audio format, we're on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Acast. I know I keep saying more platforms to be added, but I have some free time coming up, so that's one of several projects that I will be starting up, is expanding our audience, even though we're on several of the big platforms as it is.
And then Matthew is he writes for MMA publications. Right now, he is on a site called MMA Freak. That's MMA-freak.com.
And we are currently in the process of getting Google AdSense. So if you start seeing ads on the sides, I know that spam is a little bit of a problem, but if you just even go, my understanding is if you even go to those sites, not even buy anything there, then it'll help the site.
So,
and then
MMA-freak.com.
And then we just did some updates, so there's it's still a similar look, but there's just some added features on there. So
all right. And then Matthew is also on Twitter, so you can follow him personally at Matthew Salzer. And then also, if you want to follow the MMA Freak Twitter, it's MMA Freakout. So
MMA Freak has a Facebook page as well.
And also, going to be trying to get some other content on here. I plan on doing some Japanese language videos for Japanese wrestling that's going on right now. And then we've been wanting to get into sumo wrestling, so maybe that might be something that we might do as a podcast, but I do plan on uploading some highlights and discussing about that separately for just videos on the YouTube channel. So we got some great things coming up, so hoping that you'll be excited to see what we can provide for everyone for the great content that will be coming out. So Matthew, as always, thank you for hosting the podcast and for the great discussions that we have. So, and thank you all to our viewers and listeners who tune in. We're just a couple of dudes, a couple of brothers, just talking about wrestling and stuff, and we're hoping that maybe we can get back into it, into the wrestling ourselves. Kind of been out of it for a while, but maybe we can do some stuff too.
You're gonna have more opportunities than I do, just because of the fact that you're in Southern California and there's more wrestling gyms, whereas I'm in the Central Valley and I would have to start going to Fresno in order to actually do some stuff, unless we, like I said, some training centers can get started here.
Anyway, hope y'all have a great week, and we will see you next episode. So take care, everyone, and bye for now.